Okay, today I'm going to be talking about hippos. That's right, hippopotamuses. Um, in my lecture today, I'm going to talk about a new study that was just done this year, or late last year. And this study is going to shed some light on the purpose of hippo communication. Uh, it's going to Hippos have a call and response type of communication, and this study we learned a lot about why they do that. So, a call from a stranger may elicit myriad responses: panic, confusion, excitement. But it turns out that hippos have a much more bodily reaction when a stranger calls them. They spray poop out of their bodies. Yeah, that's right. Researchers studying hippopotamuses in Mozambique have revealed that the creatures not only react to the vocalizations of other hippos, but that these calls from strangers act as an identity signal. An identity signal. In other words, these calls from one hippo to another, they allow hippos to tell the difference between familiar individuals and strange individuals. Now, there's a man named Nicolas Matevon. Nicolas Matevon is at the University of Saint Etienne in France, and he's the author of this study. He says, quote, "Hippos are quite talkative. They have a bunch of different calls. They have a call called a wheeze honk, a grunt, a bellow, and a squeal. However, he says, scientists have never studied the function of these calls with experiments before. So I am the first scientist to do experiments and test the function of these different hippo calls." Now, in the journal Current Biology, Matevon and his colleagues reported how they studied the loud wheeze honk call of hippos, a sound not unlike a growling laugh. So the team recorded these calls from hippos in groups living in the same or different lengths in the Maputo Special Reserve. There were 5 different groups of hippos. So 5 different groups were then played back calls from an individual in their group. Then they were played a recording of an individual from a neighboring group at the same lake. And then they were played a call from an individual hippo from a distant group that were strangers to them. Now, while 2 pods were played, calls from their own group and calls from a distant group. So the team found that these hippos responded to the calls by calling back, or approaching the sound, or spraying poop. Spraying poop, however, was the most common reaction when the call was from a stranger than from a hippo of the same or a neighboring group. Nicholas Matevon says, "When we played back familiar hippopotamus calls, the reaction was not aggressive. Basically, they just called back." The team added that the hippo's responses were stronger for calls from individuals that were less familiar. Our experiments suggest that in hippos, the arrival of stranger individual is perceived as a threat, and the arrival of a neighbor is not a threat. While Matevon said that it was not a surprise that hippos use these vocalizations to communicate, noting that they are an excellent way to send information, he said the results show that hippo groups are territorial. The team added that their experiments show wheeze honks can travel more than 1 kilometer, suggesting that hippos would be familiar with the calls of others living on the same lake. Matevon said, "The most interesting thing to come out of this study is that hippos have a fine-grained knowledge of the voices of all individuals around them, and that this knowledge can help them navigate their social network." The team said the findings could have implications for conservation, particularly when it comes to relocating hippos to different lakes. Beethoven said, quote, "It may be possible to get the hippos used to the voice of the new ones before they arrive, and vice versa. Of course, we're not saying this measure will be sufficient to suppress all fighting between hippos, since other sensory signals are certainly also involved, but it may help."